Joining us now from Green Bay, I believe he's still in Green Bay, even though it is the offseason, covers the Packers as well as anyone, and I mean that for The Athletic. It is another fellow Orange person, and that is Matt Schneidman, who joins us on the line. Matt, how are you, man?
Not too bad. Pretty calm here in Green Bay. Nothing too much going on recently of note.
Nothing's going on. Curious locally, how did that whole thing play yesterday?
Yeah, I said to Chris before I came on, and I won't go into the Jim Boeheim analogy, but it's kind of like with Jim Boeheim. And what I mean by that is I feel like I have a pretty decent gauge on the pulse of the Packer fan base. The majority of them, maybe it's just a vocal minority that I'm hearing the loudest on Twitter, but it seems they're ready to move on, whether that's because of his play last season, things he said that they don't agree with, this saga that has played out over the past 3 off seasons. It seems Packer fans are ready to move on, if not tired with him altogether. But I think as time passes, and maybe it already has, there will be a grand appreciation for what Aaron Rodgers did for this franchise. I put out a call on Twitter yesterday for, people's favorite moments of him as a Packer. I'm putting together a story with the top 10 most memorable moments, and there were like near 1,000 responses. It's undeniable what he did for this franchise may never be matched again in Packer history. But I think there definitely is a sense, at least locally, that just like it was with Brett Favre a while ago, it's time to turn the page.
Do you buy it when he said that he was 90% retired when he went into the darkness? Or, and I hate multiple choice questions, journalists at home, please don't do it. Kids, if you're learning, if you're going to Newhouse, don't do it. Or do you think it is a self-defense response to the fact that the Packers don't want him?
That's a good question. Covering Aaron Rodgers these past 4 seasons, I have learned to not take everything he says just at face value. You really got to look into it. I tend to believe that. But then again, a couple seconds later to Pat and AJ, he says, "Oh, no chip on my shoulder. The Packers wanting to shop me didn't motivate me to want to play coming out of the darkness." I don't buy that. Like, you never know what's full truth with him. But that's part of what makes covering him fascinating, because it's always interesting. Listen, if he was 90-10 and that day of contemplation in the dark and envisioning himself playing did the trick, then so be it. But I have a hard time believing that he was not driven to play for anyone, for the Jets, for the Packers, for the Raiders, whatever, by coming out of that cave in Oregon and learning from his pals around the league that the Packers were shopping him. Any competitor, and especially Aaron Rodgers, who's one of the mightiest, would be driven by that.
Of course. I totally get it. And we're talking to Matt Schneidman here from The Athletic, who covers the Packers there in Green Bay. I made the point earlier, though, Matt, that if you are playing or asking for the trade to Detroit, Detroit just popped up on my Twitter, to the Jets, out of spite, it's the wrong reason. Now, I mean, if spite is the ultimate motivator, and we know he can still play football, hopefully the thumb is healthy, and if that drives you to one more season of greatness, good for you. But if it goes badly, and then you look back and say, I'm doing this to prove others wrong, that's a bad road to go down.
Yeah, it's like, I thought of this analogy. I don't know why I thought of it, but if you just get with another girl or date another girl, if you're a guy, to make your ex-girlfriend jealous, it's not going to turn out well for anyone. And there's a sense, this is not based on anything I've heard, I'm wondering if Aaron Rodgers just wants to do that to prove to the Packers that he still has it. Listen, there's no doubt he thinks Jordan Love is going to be a good quarterback, but at the same time, as you heard him say yesterday, he said he's arguably the best player in franchise history. That's correct. He has said to Pat before this offseason that he still thinks he can play at an MVP level. Deep down inside of him, even if he claims, and I believe him when he says this, he understands the business of it, the timeline of moving on to Jordan Love, He was once in Jordan's position, as we all know. Deep down, even if he understands all that or claims to, there has to be a little bit of slight. And whether it's he truly wants to play for the Jets, truly thinks they can be Super Bowl contenders, is really just doing it for Nathaniel Hackett, or it's this is my best option and I need an option to go prove the Packers wrong, I don't blame him for that either. This isn't me saying, oh, he shouldn't be doing that. It's just a matter of trying to figure out if he actually means what he said. It'll be fascinating to watch nonetheless.
It's interesting, too, you bring up Nathaniel Hackett. I almost forgot that part of it yesterday. So Rodgers was angry. He was adamant that the Jets didn't hire Nathaniel Hackett because of him, that Nathaniel Hackett is a damn good football coach, and that it is insulting to Hackett to suggest that the Jets hired him to lure Aaron Rodgers. But then he went on to say, but my desire, my need, my want to go to the Jets does have something to do with the fact that Nathaniel Hackett is there. So it's like the chicken or the egg, but it's one of the reasons he wants to be there. Now they just have to figure out the compensation. And the Packers have all the leverage. I mean, Matt, you know how this contract is structured here. They have the leverage. What is it that you think, I can't even talk here, Matt, sorry. What is it do you think they want?
Well, I know it's not 2 first-round picks. I know that was floated out there. I don't know what exactly they're asking for, but it is not multiple first-round picks like we saw dealt for the likes of Russell Wilson, Matthew Stafford. In terms of the leverage, I find it interesting. I agree with you. I find it interesting that people are like, oh, the Jets have all the leverage because Rodgers wants to go there, and everyone knows the Packers want to get rid of him. Well, no, because he's still under contract with the Packers. They don't have to trade him. And they can wait until the start of the NFL season, until they would have to pay that $58.3 million option bonus, which they're not going to do. They could wait till after June 1st to spread this $40 million dead money hit over 2 seasons, about $15 million on this year, $25 million on next year. Don't think they'll do that. This trade will get done because the Packers, if Brian Gutekunst has a single brain cell, which I know he does, need the draft capital, whatever draft capital it is they get in return. They need it for this year's draft to help build around a 24-year-old quarterback right away. Whether it's a second-round pick, whether it's a first-round pick and a third-round pick, whatever it is, they need that right away. So this trade may not happen in 30 minutes. I mean, it could. It was the first Thursday of March Madness last year when the Devontae Adams trade went down. But this trade will get done soon before the draft. But, yes, I agree with you that the Packers have all the leverage because – as people seem to forget, he is not a free agent. He is still under contract with Green Bay. You know,
the timing is interesting. It was a year ago, I think, today that the Deshaun Watson trade went down, and then the Browns had the awkward thing with Baker, whereas do you tell him to stay away? And they did. Hey, stay at home. And they didn't pull off the trade with the Panthers to send Mayfield to Carolina until much later in the summer. You think it gets done by the draft. If it doesn't get done for the draft, then we might have that. Now, Aaron obviously hasn't been a big off-season guy the last couple of years anyway, but it would be a headline. Cameras outside Lambeau. Packers back at work. Aaron Rodgers told to stay away. They don't want that.
No, they don't want that. And listen, Aaron Rodgers wouldn't show up to the facility and start lurking around Jordan Love's locker. But for Jordan's sake, for the Packers' sake, all parties want this to get done. This isn't a Brian Gutekunst is like, nope, I'm not trading him. They want to trade him. It's just a matter of playing a little bit of hardball, as you should if you're a GM in trade negotiations. If Jordan Love came back for OTAs or minicamp or training camp and Aaron Rodgers is still on the roster, that's one more unnecessary distraction. And I take questions from media because they would be asked, I know I'm one of them, asking Jordan, what's it like with Aaron still here? The Packers don't want him to have to deal with that when he's preparing for his first season to start for the Packers. So it's common sense that this trade will get done, I believe, before the draft. If for no other reason, then the Packers don't want to make the trade 2 weeks after the draft and not be able to get whatever they get in return for another 10 months.
Talking to Matt Schneidman here from The Athletic. Matt, 2 more real quick ones here. Do they firmly believe Jordan Love is ready? And there's 2 things. It's one thing to be ready. It's another thing to be good. Do they think he is ready to be good?
They don't know. And I think it's a cop-out answer, but it's the right one. I remember I asked Aaron Rodgers the night they lost to the Lions. I said, listen, we don't know if we're going to talk to you again. If you retire or whatever, do you think Jordan's ready to be the quarterback of this franchise if he has to be? And Aaron's response was, you never know until he gets thrown in there. And Aaron said that he remembers waking up in San Diego the offseason of 2008 to 50 text messages, woke up from a nap saying that Brett was retired. And it hit him all at once. I'm the guy now. But you never really know if they can do it and do it well, like you said, until they're thrown in there. Listen, the Packers know what Jordan Love is in the classroom. They know what he is on the practice field versus scout team. But he's only played sparsely in game action. Until we get to see him in consistent, meaningful snaps, we don't know if he's going to be a guy or the guy, as Rodgers and Brett Favre have been. And it might not take 8 games. It might take a season. It might take a season and a half. So there's going to be a lot of patience required from this fan base. And because they know they've been spoiled for the past 30 years, I don't know how tolerant they'll be with that.
Well, Aaron Rodgers opened 2-0, then they ended up going 6-10, his first full year as a starter. But a couple of years later, they ended up obviously winning Super Bowl 45. Matt, finally, one thing. A lot of people have said that, hey, Green Bay's one thing, but there's no way Aaron's going to like the New York media. I don't think people pay attention to the job that you guys collectively do there. And as a regular viewer to Aaron's pressers, not the McAfee show necessarily, but certainly that as well. But over the last couple of years, I said it earlier on this show that I think his pressers are must-watch TV because you guys do ask good questions, insightful questions, and if you push, he will give really good and insightful answers. If you had to give any advice, I can't believe I'm asking, to the New York media, what would that advice be on how to deal with their soon-to-be quarterback?
Right, the big bad New York media and the small tissue paper soft Green Bay. I know how it's been painted. Listen, just from my perspective, the last 4 years, he is open to confrontation. He is, I don't want to use the word dream, but I almost might. He's extremely accessible. He's a fantastic quote. Regardless of how you feel about him as a player or a person, he's a dream for a reporter to cover. And, yeah, there's going to be questions about, the Johnson & Johnson and playing for Woody Johnson with his stance on the vaccine. But Aaron's not like a 22-year-old kid fresh out of college. Yeah, he's been in Green Bay his whole career, and it's the smallest NFL media market, but he's almost 40 years old. He's a mature adult. He can handle awkward, confrontational, controversial lines of questioning. Sure, he might snap back at you.
I think I think he wants the confrontation. Sorry, Matt, I cut you off. I think he wants the.
No, I agree with you.
Yeah, he wants the intellectual back and forth. He craves it.
And he'll go back at you, which I respect. I think it gets lost. Like the reporters are the only ones allowed to confront the athletes, and the athletes aren't allowed to snap back. No, they are. If we're allowed to ask and pry, they're allowed to do the same with us and snap back. And that's what Aaron has done at times, and it provides for a healthy dialogue and ultimately a better understanding of the game, better understanding of the athlete. And I think he'll do just fine with the New York media. I have a lot of faith in a 40-year-old man who has handled himself pretty well with the media over the years. He's
a man. He's 40. He can handle it. Matt Schneidman covers The Athletic and does it in fantastic fashion. Covers the Green Bay Packers for The Athletic. Man, I am getting tongue-tied. I am sleep-deprived after 3 days of free agency. Matt, we appreciate your time regardless and hope soon that this is over for you and yours and you can move on to Jordan Love.
Thank you, my friend. Always good talking with you. Appreciate you having me on.
Likewise, sir. See you soon. See you maybe at the owners' meetings. Matt Schneidman, everybody, from The Athletic.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.